Good morning. So let's get into today's geometry node. Excuse the headphones, there's a dog barking next door, so just trying to protect myself. But what we made today is kind of a Boolean destruction for like concrete. Um, so pretty simple today, nothing too crazy. I just wanted to mess around with the Mesh Boolean node. So just to kind of give you an overview, we have this object here. It's just a extruded box with some faces missing. We have one vertex group for the bottom faces for a selection, just so we can remove them from getting the panels made, or we masked it out as well. And so the main focus here is just on these little panels. And we're using our face instance there, we're taking these three panels, and we're placing all the faces here with them. And what's cool is that these are procedural, so we can go ahead and add more cuts if we want. We can change the seed of how they are cut, find a look that we like. Fortunately, with Booleans, there are some edge cases where it just won't work properly, so you kind of have to play around with it and find something you like. Let's do like 14 or something. Get a decent amount of destruction in there. Turn up that seed. Anyway, just play around with it till we find something we like. That one's pretty cool. So the overview for this particular object is that we have a base shape, which is just this cube, some subdivisions. Pretty simple. If I turn off the geo node, you can see it right here. And we're taking these rocks, distributing them across this mesh, and then one at a time, Boolean cutting them. Now that's actually very important, is that the important part is that we do it one at a time. You can't really do just like join all your objects you want to cut out and then cut it. Does not like that. Instead, one at a time. It's going to give you the most dependable results. So that's this loop right here. That's why we have the kind of enclosed area. And let's get into it. So just like I said, again, this is all in the repeat node, but we take our mesh and we distribute points across its surface. Then, and this one took me a while to figure out how to do properly, is just to get just 1 point, which might seem a little strange. And in fact, in the future, I'll probably break this apart. So we have the points. We just feed in a point cloud rather than including the distribute points in here. Be a little bit more flexible if we just give it points, give it the cuts, and it goes through all of them. We really don't need this section included in this graph, at least. So again, what we do is distribute points, and then we only select one of those points. Again, this is not how I would do it properly. This is just after experimenting what I ended up with, and needs some revision. Anyway, so we select one of those points, delete all the other ones, and then we instance one of the rocks on those points, realize the instance, and then do a mesh Boolean. And then most importantly, this gets fed back into the repeat node, pops back out the other side. We distribute again, delete, do the mesh Boolean, and it just repeats again, however many times you want. In this case, 14 times for this particular panel. Now, I'm not sure if this is how I do it in the future, but when I distribute the points here, this is getting distributed on the original geometry, not the new geometry, not the destroyed geometry. I found it kind of was a little bit more consistent because otherwise the meshes you're distributing could kind of go further into your object. So like if you had a cube and you take a chunk out of it and then the point gets distributed on that new removed section, then suddenly you kind of have really caved out the interior of it, whereas I was kind of imagining like a surface level destruction. Both are useful. And yeah, so that's it for the panel. We do that for these ones as well, have some variety. And then on our big cube here, we're actually just going to look at this one. Very simple. We use my custom face instancer node with collections. I actually updated this one a little bit, so if anyone happens to be using this node, this is a new version. But we make a selection, and we distribute panels onto just that section. Interesting. I don't know. Should be getting rid of the original geometry, actually. So we should see a floor. But that's okay. Yeah, so it just distributes them, filling in all those faces. And the last kind of node that I worked on today is the pillars, kind of these edges. And that's same deal here. We have a little pillar object. It's getting Mesh Boolean, which looks pretty cool, honestly. I'd love to throw in some like rebar in there so that we have like, you know, just like cool metal bits poking out. We're really getting closer to like concrete destruction, but not going to worry about that too much right now. But we made a little graph in order to take all the edges and then position our pillar on one of them, rotate it to the other side of the edge, the other point of an edge, and then scale it to fit it in. So let's take a look at that. So again, we have our original geometry. Selection. Gotcha. This is just, we just are excluding the floor again. And then we get into our object here. So what it does, this is another kind of repeating loop. A little different though, this is a for each element loop. So for each of our edges, we're going to process them one at a time, and it outputs each processed segment to this geometry here. Kind of accumulates them. So like you can imagine for each edge, we do something to it, we leave it in a pile, and we just keep doing that for each edge until we have this big pile. And this node here, that's the processed pile. This is actually the original geometry, which could be useful. But we're not doing anything with it right now. Okay, so we go through each edge. The first thing we do is we take the element and we get the positions of the first point on the edge and the second point on the edge. With those position values, we can get direction. So this subtract node takes the second position, subtracts the first position from it, and that gives us a direction from the first point to the second point. And we're using that as a vector, direction vector, to rotate our pillar. In fact, let me go ahead and just look at this. So we should have, darn, of course it's like already one that's standing straight up, so there's not much rotating happening here. That's okay. But we can imagine for these ones, right? It would set it here and then rotate it 90 degrees to snap if it was this horizontal edge that we were sampling. Excuse me. All right. So once we've rotated it, we also need to scale it. So if we just put it in, rotate it, we actually do get a lot of overlap, or in this case, no overlap. Either way, it's just not touching that other point. It either goes way past or it's lower. It's not exact. So what we first do is we take our pillar and we look at the height of it by looking at our bounding box. We take the minimum and maximum values. Looking at just the vertical value, we get a distance. So this is the distance, take the maximum, subtract the minimum. That's how far away they are. Then we take the distance from the edge, not the distance. We take that distance, we compare them through a divide to get the difference in scale. How much more or less taller is this object in a relative way. We combine that with our vector, scale just the z, good to go. We have a bunch of instances at the end. So technically this is not geometry, You can see that right here because we get this little outline on the edge. This is actually, excuse me, goodness. These are actually instances. So if we wanted to do additional processing, we would need to match them. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for today. The last kind of trick or thing that, if you're reviewing this object, might be a little weird, is for the concrete structure. I've actually broken it apart. So if I go here, we can actually separate each of these pieces out. The cool thing is they're actually sampling the same object data. So I could put in building here. If I put in building here, you can see we have 3 users, 1, 2, 3. These all share the same data. So if I go ahead and adjust one of them, they're all getting updated, but we can still treat them as separate objects and do separate geometry nodes on them. This is something I'll probably use a bit more of as time goes on, because it's nice to take the same thing, do different operations on it. And unlike yesterday's video, where I had a base mesh that was like kind of a completely separate object, it was its own collection and I like kept it hidden, this still allows me to, when I select it and hit tab, I'm working on the right stuff, because that simplicity is pretty important if we want to work quickly. And yeah, pretty fun stuff. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you all for taking a look at the video. I'm going to go ahead and upload this file and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!